It was a typical evening for Jake. He was sitting in his small apartment, relaxing after a long day at work. The soft hum of his fan was the only sound in the room, and the low glow from the TV was comforting. He stretched out on the couch, his mind still buzzing from the chaos of the day. Suddenly, the door to his room swung open, startling him from his thoughts. Without any warning, a figure stepped inside and Jake's heart skipped a beat. Standing in the doorway was a woman. Not just any woman, but someone entirely different. Her skin was a pale, almost silvery blue, and her eyes shimmered like starlight. She was tall, with an elegant posture, and she wore a strange outfit, something unlike anything he'd seen before. It was a mix of shiny fabrics that seemed to shimmer in the light, and her hair was a soft, silvery white. For a moment, Jake didn't know whether to speak or run. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. Was this some sort of prank? Maybe a hidden camera show? But before he could open his mouth, she smiled and in a calm voice announced, "I'm your new roommate." Jake blinked in disbelief. "What?" She stepped further into the room as if she were completely at ease and dropped a bag on the floor. "Yes, I'll be staying here from now on," she said matter-of-factly, as if there was no question about it. Jake stood frozen, his brain struggling to catch up. "Wait, what?" He glanced at the door, as if he might have missed someone sneaking in behind her. But no, there was no one else. "Who are you?" "I'm Zala," she said, glancing around the room. "I was assigned to live here." "Assigned?" Jake asked, still not sure if he was dreaming or if someone was playing a joke on him. "Assigned by who? What do you mean you're my new roommate?" Zila turned toward him and smiled again. "I'm here as part of an exchange program. I'll be living with you, learning your ways, and sharing mine. This will help with the peace-building efforts between our worlds." Jake's head was spinning. "Peace-building efforts? What are you talking about? What kind of exchange program?" Zala looked at him, her face serious. "I'm from another planet. I'm part of an intergalactic initiative. I've been assigned to Earth to observe and integrate into human society. It's a peaceful mission." Jake took a step back. He was sure his brain had just short-circuited. "You're from another planet?" "Yes," Zala said, nodding slightly. "I thought that was obvious." He stared at her for a long moment, unsure how to process what was happening. "Are you, like, an alien?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, still struggling to find words that made sense. She gave him a small, amused smile. "I suppose you could call me that. Technically, yes, but I prefer Intergalactic Ambassador." Jake stood there in stunned silence. His first instinct was to run out the door, but then he remembered it was his apartment. He wasn't the one who should be running. He was the one who had been invaded. Okay, let's back up," Jake said, still feeling like he was in a dream. "You're telling me that you're an alien, and you're going to be living here, in my room, as my roommate." "That's correct," Zala said, now looking around the apartment, clearly assessing the space. "I'll be staying here, learning about your world, your culture, and your people." Jake ran a hand through his hair, trying to grasp the situation. This was insane. Was he being punked? He took a deep breath and decided to just go with it for now. "Well, this is my room," he said, still trying to make sense of everything. "And I don't even know what to say right now." Zala smiled, taking a seat on the couch. "You don't need to say anything. You just need to make space for me." Jake stared at her, unsure if he should sit or stand. He couldn't quite decide if he was more nervous or curious. "What are you going to do exactly? I mean, why do you need to live here? You don't even look human." Zala raised an eyebrow. "I'm not human, obviously, but I will integrate. My mission requires immersion into your world. I will be observing your daily life. I promise not to get in your way, unless you would prefer I leave." Jake shook his head. "No, it's fine, I guess. It's just a lot to take in." "Good," Zila said, relaxing back into the couch. I'll start by getting comfortable, and then we can begin our learning exchange. And don't worry, she added with a wink. I'll be very respectful of your personal space. Jake stood there for a long time staring at her. His mind raced with questions, but for now all he could do was sit down and try to digest this bizarre reality. The alien sitting on his couch was his new roommate, and he was completely helpless to do anything about it. Jake sat at his desk, his hands gripping the edge as he stared across the room at Zila, who had made herself comfortable on his couch. It had been over an hour since she entered his life, and everything still felt completely unreal. She was sitting there, relaxed, as if the idea of being in his room was the most normal thing in the world. Meanwhile, Jake's mind was racing with questions, but he had no idea where to even begin. So, Jake finally spoke, his voice sounding shaky despite his best efforts to sound calm. How did you, get here? I mean, how do you just materialize in your room? Zela interrupted, her voice as calm as ever. I traveled here using a form of transportation that you wouldn't be familiar with. It's not important. What matters is that I'm here now. Jake blinked, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. He had been expecting a normal day, but now he was standing in front of an actual alien sitting in his living room like it was just another day. What do you mean, not important? I think it's pretty important, he said, pacing the room, his nerves getting the best of him. You just showed up out of nowhere and told me you're my new roommate. How does this even work? I mean, how do you live here? What do I do with you? Zela tilted her head slightly, considering his words. I understand that this might be overwhelming for you, Jake, but I'm here for a purpose. I'm not a threat to you or your way of life. She paused before adding, but if it helps, I can explain more about what I'm doing here. Jake stopped pacing and turned to face her. Please, he said, his voice still shaking. I don't even know where to start. Why are you here? And why me? Zela looked thoughtful for a moment before responding. I'm here on an intergalactic mission assigned by my people. We are working to build bridges between different species and civilizations across the galaxy. My presence on Earth is part of that effort. Jake raised an eyebrow. So, you're like an ambassador? She nodded, her expression serious. In a way. But more than that, I am here to study humanity, understand your culture, and observe your interactions. There is much we can learn from you, Jake. Jake couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Okay, but why me? Why am I the one you're assigned to? Zela paused, her eyes meeting his as she seemed to choose, her words carefully. You were selected because you are living alone. You have a neutral position, no military, no powerful political connections. Your daily life will give me insight into the human condition without bias or influence from power structures. I also chose your home because it is quiet. I will not disturb you more than necessary. Jake blinked, trying to process this. He was just some average guy, not special by any means, yet somehow he had become part of a mission to study humanity. So you'll just be living here? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Yes, she replied. For the duration of my assignment. It will not be forever, but for now, I will stay here. Jake's mind raced with even more questions. And what about the stuff you can do? I mean, what are you capable of? Can you do things? Like move things with your mind? Or something else? Zela smiled a little at his curiosity. I do have abilities that might seem unusual to you, but those are not for show. My people are far more advanced than humans, but we believe in peaceful coexistence. I will only use my abilities if absolutely necessary. For now, I am here to learn and observe, not to cause harm or disrupt your life. Jake shook his head, trying to clear it. This is insane. I mean, I live in a small apartment and now I have an alien roommate. His voice was laced with disbelief. How am I supposed to deal with this? Zela studied him for a moment before speaking softly. It might seem strange now, but over time, you will become accustomed to my presence. I will do my best to respect your space, and if you ever feel uncomfortable, you can tell me. I am here to cooperate with you, Jake stood silently for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on him. And you can just stay here? Without anyone noticing? Correct, Zayla said, nodding. I can alter my appearance if necessary or blend in with your surroundings. There are many ways I can go unnoticed if I wish to. But for now I will remain as I am. I am not here to hide but to learn. Jake glanced at the door, wondering if he could just leave and forget everything. But deep down he knew that wouldn't solve anything. He didn't know what to think, but he knew one thing for sure: this was real. The alien in his living room wasn't some joke, and she wasn't going anywhere. All right, Jake said, finally letting out a deep sigh. I guess I'll just have to get used to it. But can you at least tell me one thing? Zila raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What is it? Do you know how to cook? Jake asked, half joking, half serious. Because I don't really know how to make much more than microwave food, and I could use some help. Zayla laughed softly, a sound that was surprisingly warm. I do not know how to cook in the Huma way, but I am quite resourceful. Perhaps I can teach you something from my world. Jake smiled, the first real smile since everything had started. All right, I guess we'll start there. You're my new roommate, and I'm your Earth guide. I'll show you what it's like to live here, and you can teach me how to survive an alien roommate. It was a start, at least, and somehow Jake knew that no matter how strange things got, he would never forget this moment. The next few days felt like a strange blur for Jake. He had never expected his life to change so dramatically, but here he was, living with an alien. Zella, his new roommate, had settled into his apartment with surprising ease. At first, Jake had kept his distance, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in his routine. But the more he tried to ignore her presence, the more he found himself curious about her. Zella, for her part, seemed to have no trouble adjusting to life on Earth. She had a calm, almost serene demeanor, as if everything were just another day for her. She had a natural grace to her movements, and her every action seemed deliberate and thoughtful. Despite her otherworldly appearance, she made no attempt to hide her curiosity about Earth. It was as if every little thing fascinated her. One afternoon, Jake was sitting on the couch watching TV when Zella walked into the room, holding a small plant in her hands. She had found it in the corner of the apartment where Jake had kept it forgotten and unwatered for weeks. She knelt down next to the plant and began inspecting it carefully, her fingers tracing the leaves with curiosity. You like plants? Jake asked, his voice breaking the silence. He had never really thought much about the plant before, but seeing her so focused on it made him wonder why it caught her attention. I've read about them, Zayla replied, her eyes sparkling as she examined the plant. They are living things just like us. They grow, change, and interact with their environment. I find it fascinating. Jake raised an eyebrow. You've read about them? So you know about Earth? She nodded. I've studied much about Earth and its creatures before I arrived, but nothing compares to seeing it with my own eyes. It's more beautiful than I imagined. Jake watched her, feeling a sense of unease mixed with curiosity. It was hard to imagine that this peaceful alien had come to study humans, especially when he couldn't even figure out how to start a conversation with her. You're just not what I expected, Jake said, his voice soft. He wasn't sure if he was speaking to her or to himself. I don't know. I thought you'd be more aggressive or strange in a bad way. Zayla chuckled lightly, a warm sound that made Jake feel slightly less nervous. Many humans think that, but aggression is not the answer to understanding each other. Peace is. Jake nodded slowly, his mind trying to process everything she said. He had expected Zella to be more like what he had seen in sci-fi movies, mysterious and cold, or maybe even dangerous. But she wasn't like that. She was calm, almost too calm, like everything was exactly how it was meant to be. I guess I'm not used to having someone, or something, from another world living here, Jake admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. It's a little weird, you know? Zella smiled, standing up and setting the plant down on the windowsill. I understand. This is just as strange for me. but I am learning about your world, your people, and I hope you will learn about mine too. Jake leaned back on the couch and ran his hand through his hair. I mean, you say you're here to learn about humanity, but you don't really act like I thought you would. It's like you're more human than alien or something. She tilted her head slightly, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. I am trying to adapt. My people believe in understanding and peaceful coexistence. I believe that learning from each other is the best way to build harmony. And perhaps, I also want to understand why you are so different from us. Jake blinked. Different? Zela nodded, sitting down across from him. Yes. Your people, despite your many flaws, are capable of incredible things. You have creativity, resilience, and the ability to feel deeply. These are things that my people have lost over time. Lost? Jake asked, puzzled. What do you mean? Where I come from, we have evolved in a way that makes us more efficient but less emotional. We have no need for things like love or fear or sadness. But I have read about these emotions in your kind. They are powerful, and I find them fascinating. Jake's mind was racing. This was more than he had expected to hear from her. He had always thought of aliens as being distant, cold, and unemotional, but Zela was the opposite. She seemed to long for the very emotions that made humans imperfect yet uniquely capable. I never thought I'd be hearing this kind of stuff, Jake muttered. I mean, it's all too much to take in. Zela smiled again, that same calm smile that made him feel a little more at ease. I understand it's a lot, but you don't have to figure everything out all at once. We can take our time. Jake leaned forward, intrigued. What happens after your mission? What do you do then? That depends, Zela said, her expression turning a little more serious. I will complete my observations and return to my people, but I will take what I have learned with me. Perhaps I will teach my people the value of human emotions and the importance of connection. Jake thought about that for a moment. He didn't know why, but the idea of Zela trying to change her own people because of something she learned from humans made him feel proud. It was strange, but it felt like something was happening between them. Something that had nothing to do with his old world and everything to do with what was now sitting in front of him. Well, I guess I can try to teach you about humans, Jake said finally, breaking the silence. But don't expect me to be some expert on it. I don't have all the answers. Zela smiled warmly, her eyes gleaming with something like respect. I don't need answers, Jake. I only need to understand. And in that moment, Jake realized that no matter how strange this situation was, he wasn't in it alone. Zela might be from another world, but somehow she was beginning to feel like someone he could trust. It had been a few weeks since Zela had moved in, and things were beginning to feel more normal. At least as normal as life could be with an alien living in his apartment. Jake had grown more used to her presence, and they had even started spending time together, talking about Earth, her home planet, and everything in between. It wasn't the weirdest thing in the world anymore. Still, there were moments when Jake would catch himself staring at her, wondering if she really was who she said she was. One evening, as Jake sat on the couch flipping through channels, Zela was sitting beside him, looking out the window with her usual calm expression. The night outside was peaceful, the city lights twinkling in the distance. There was something different about her tonight, though. Her usual calm demeanor was replaced with a quiet tension that Jake couldn't quite place. After a few minutes of silence, Jake decided to break it. Hey, what's going on? You've been quiet all evening. Zela glanced at him but didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked back out the window, her eyes distant. Jake noticed the change in her, something like a sadness or worry that he hadn't seen before. I've been thinking, she finally said, her voice soft but serious. There's something I haven't told you. Jake turned to face her, his curiosity piqued. What do you mean? What's going on? Zela sighed and shifted in her seat. I told you I was sent here for a mission. To learn about humanity. To observe. But there's more to it. My mission is not just a peaceful one. There is danger involved. Jake raised an eyebrow. Danger? What kind of danger? Zila paused, her fingers brushing the edge of her sleeve. The mission I've been assigned to isn't just about learning about your species. It's about preparing for a threat that could reach both our worlds. Jake leaned forward, suddenly aware of the seriousness in her tone. What kind of threat? What do you mean? She looked him in the eyes now, her gaze intense. My people, they are aware of a growing danger in the universe. It's not just a threat to us, it's a threat to all species, including humans. It's something we've been trying to stop, but it's out of our control. Jake's heart raced. This wasn't just some simple alien mission to observe Earth. It was something bigger, something that involved his planet's safety. Wait, you're telling me that your mission is about stopping a threat to Earth? Jake asked, trying to grasp the weight of her words. Zella nodded, her expression serious. Yes, but I can't explain everything yet. My people are working on it, but we don't have all the answers. I'm here to gather information, to see if humans are capable of helping. Jake took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of fear and disbelief. Why didn't you tell me this before? I've been living with you, and I didn't even know any of this. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to burden you with the weight of it, but I trust you now. I need you to understand why I'm here. I need you to know that this mission is not just about observing your world. It's about protecting it. Zila's voice softened, and she looked away, her face filled with concern. I'm afraid that I've become too close to you. I didn't plan for this. My mission was supposed to be detached. Jake sat back, his mind trying to process everything she was saying. So you're telling me that you're not just here as a roommate. You're here because there's some big threat coming and you think humans can help stop it? Zella nodded again. Yes, but I don't know if humans will be able to handle it. There is much about your species that is unpredictable. Your emotions, your decisions. Sometimes they make you stronger, but sometimes they make you weaker. Jake felt his heart race. He had no idea what to make of everything. Part of him wanted to run, to ignore this whole situation, and pretend nothing had changed. But another part of him felt drawn to Zila, to her cause, and to the strange connection they had started to form. Is there anything I can do? Jake asked, his voice filled with determination. He wasn't sure where this courage was coming from, but it felt right to ask. Zila looked at him, surprised by his question. You would help? Why not? Jake replied, his voice steady. I'm already in this. If it's going to affect Earth, I'm in. I don't know what I can do, but I'll try. You're my roommate, Zila, and I don't want to see something bad happen. A small smile tugged at the corners of Zella's lips. You are braver than I thought, Jake, but this won't be easy. There are risks involved. We don't know how far this threat reaches. It could be more dangerous than you realize. I've been living with you for weeks now, Jake said, his voice filled with sincerity. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I know one thing. I'm not going to just sit here while the world's in danger. I'll help however I can. Zila's expression softened, and she looked at him with a mix of gratitude and something else, something like admiration. Thank you, Jake. You don't know how much this means to me. Jake nodded, feeling a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. So, what do we do next? Zella looked out the window again, her gaze distant as if she were thinking about something, far beyond Earth. Next, we begin to prepare. There is much to learn, and I will need your help. But first, we must be patient. The time will come when we will face this threat together. Jake wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just about an alien roommate anymore. It was about a mission to protect Earth, and he was ready to play his part. The days after Zella revealed the truth about her mission were filled with a strange sense of urgency. Jake had always thought that his life was calm and predictable, but now his world had turned upside down. An alien, a peaceful ambassador from another planet, had moved into his apartment, and, as it turned out, she was here to protect Earth from an unknown threat. Jake didn't know how to prepare for something like this. He'd always thought of himself as an ordinary guy, someone with a simple life, but now he felt a sense of responsibility that he had never felt before. He wanted to help Zilla. He wanted to be a part of something bigger than himself. But as much as he wanted to help, he also had no idea where to start. It was late one evening, when everything changed. Jake was in his room reading a book when he heard Zella's voice calling from the living room. She sounded urgent. "Jake, come here. Now." Jake's heart skipped a beat. He rushed out of his room, finding Zella standing by the window, her eyes narrowed with concern. "What's going on?" Jake asked, his pulse quickening. Zella's calm demeanor was gone, replaced by an intensity Jake had never seen before. "They're here," Zella said, her voice low and tense. "The ones I told you about. The ones I've been warning you about. They've come for me." Jake stared at her in shock. "Who? What do you mean?" Zella turned to face him, her expression serious. "The threat I spoke of. It's not just some distant problem. They are already here on Earth, and they know where I am." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "What are we supposed to do? How do we stop them?" "I don't know if we can stop them," Zella said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I do know that they're dangerous, and if they find me, they'll stop at nothing to capture me." Jake's mind was racing. "We need to get out of here. We can't just stay here and wait for them to find us." Zilla shook her head. "Leaving won't help. They'll find me wherever I go. The only way to protect you is to face them head on." Jake swallowed hard. He had never imagined that his life would come to this. He had never been a hero. He had never been brave enough to face danger head on. But this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about protecting Earth. And it was about protecting Zella, his alien roommate. "What do we do?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the fear running through his veins. Zella turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "I need you to trust me. I'll protect you, but you need to stay calm. I'll need your help to get us out of here safely." Jake nodded, his mind clearing. If Zella trusted him, he could do this. He had to do this. Zella's gaze shifted to the door, and Jake followed her eyes, realizing that something was moving outside the apartment. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. "They're close," Zella said. "We need to leave now." Without a second thought, Jake grabbed his jacket and followed Zella toward the back door. Zella's steps were quick and purposeful, and Jake tried his best to keep up. As they reached the alley behind the apartment, Zella turned to him, her face serious. "Stay behind me," she said. "If they try to attack, don't fight. Just get to safety." Jake was about to ask her what she meant by that, but then he heard the sound of footsteps, heavy and purposeful, coming from the street. His heart raced as Zella looked around, her eyes scanning the area for any sign of the approaching threat. "They're here," she whispered. Jake's breathing grew shallow. He couldn't see anything, but he could feel the tension in the air, the way the world seemed to hold its breath. Then out of nowhere, a figure stepped into the alley, blocking their path. Jake froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The figure was tall, wearing a dark, hooded cloak. His face was hidden in shadow, but Jake could feel his eyes on him, cold and calculating. "Zella," the figure said, his voice low and menacing. "We've been looking for you." Zella stepped forward, her posture straight and unyielding. "You won't find what you're looking for here," she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Leave now." The figure laughed softly, a sound that sent shivers down Jake's spine. "You're naive, Zella. You can't hide from us. Not forever." Jake felt the air around them grow heavier, the tension almost unbearable. He wanted to run, but he knew it was too late. These people, these creatures, were dangerous, and they were here to take Zella, to destroy everything she had worked for. Suddenly, Zella raised her hand and the figure's body froze. Jake watched in awe as Zella's energy seemed to wrap around him like a force field, holding him in place. It was like nothing Jake had ever seen before. Zella was using her powers to stop the figure, to keep him from advancing. "We don't have much time," Zella said, turning to Jake. "Go, run to the nearest safe house. I'll handle this." Jake wanted to argue, wanted to stay and help, but he knew she was right. If he didn't run, they both might be in danger. He turned and ran, his heart pounding as he raced down the alley away from the threat. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew one thing. He had to get to safety for both of them. As he ran, he glanced over his shoulder only to see Zelda standing there facing down the figure, her power radiating around her. For the first time since she had entered his life, Jake felt both terrified and proud. Zella was protecting him. She was fighting for Earth. And for the first time in his life, Jake knew that he wasn't just a bystander. He was part of something bigger. Jake's legs burned as he ran through the narrow streets, his breath coming in quick gasps. The city around him was a blur, lights flashing by as he tried to put as much distance as possible between himself and the danger behind him. His heart was racing and his mind was overwhelmed with fear and confusion. What was going on? Who were those people after Zila? And why did they want her so badly? He didn't have time to answer those questions. All he could do now was focus on getting away, getting somewhere safe. He had to trust Zila. She had said she'd protect him, but in that moment all he could think about was how helpless he felt. As he turned the corner, he noticed a dimly lit alley ahead. It seemed like a good place to hide for a moment. He slipped into the alley, his back pressed against the cold brick wall. He tried to steady his breathing, trying to make sense of everything that had happened in the past few hours. Then, out of nowhere, a voice broke the silence. Jake, it was Zella. She was standing a few feet away, looking calm despite everything that had just happened. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. It was as if time stood still. Zella? Jake said, his voice shaking. You're okay? She nodded, her expression still serious but filled with a sense of relief. I'm fine. I've dealt with them. Jake couldn't help but stare at her. She had just faced that mysterious figure, that unknown threat, and yet here she was standing in front of him as if nothing had happened. There was no fear in her eyes, no sign of struggle. She was calm, composed, and it amazed Jake. Are you sure? Jake asked, taking a step closer to her. Those guys? Who are they? What did they want with you? Zila sighed softly and glanced around the alley, making sure they were still alone. They are part of a group I've been trying to avoid. They're the ones I told you about, the ones who are after me. They are not from your world, they've been hunting me for a long time. But it's not just me they're after. They want to control the galaxy, and they think that capturing me will help them do that. Jake's mind was spinning. He couldn't wrap his head around everything Zella was saying. But why you? Why would they care about you so much? Zella hesitated, her eyes distant. My people, our people, have knowledge that others want. There are certain abilities we possess, certain things we can do that others would use for power. They believe that if they capture me, they can use me to unlock those abilities. Jake's heart sank as he processed her words. He had no idea how much danger Zella was in. So, they're trying to control you? Zella nodded. Yes. And if they get to me, they'll use my abilities to control others, to dominate your world and mine. That's why I'm here. To protect Earth. To make sure they don't succeed. Jake stood there, his thoughts racing. The world he knew, his simple life, had been turned upside down. But something inside him clicked. Zella wasn't just a stranger who had barged into his life. She was more than that. She was here to protect him, to protect everyone, and now he had to do his part. So what now? Jake asked, his voice steadier than before. What do we do? Zila smiled, a small but genuine smile that warmed Jake's heart. Now we work together. I need your help, Jake. You've already proven you're willing to fight for this world, but there's more to it. This won't be easy. We need to gather information, find out where they're hiding, and stop them before they do anything worse. Jake felt a surge of determination. He wasn't going to let Zella face this threat alone. She had trusted him, and now it was his turn to return that trust. I'm with you, he said, his voice firm. I don't know how much help I'll be, but I'll do whatever it takes. Zila's expression softened, and she stepped closer, to him. "You're stronger than you think. I believe in you, Jake." For the first time since all of this started, Jake felt a sense of purpose. Zela wasn't just an alien from another world. She was his partner, someone he cared about deeply, and she had chosen to trust him. The bond between them had formed quickly, but it was real. She wasn't just here as an observer. She was part of his life now. And no matter how crazy or dangerous things got, he knew he couldn't turn his back on her. Not now. "Thank you," Zela said, her voice soft but sincere. "I won't let anything happen to you, Jake. You've helped me more than you know." Jake nodded, a sense of calm settling over him. "We'll stop them, Zela. Together." Zela's smile widened, and for a brief moment the tension between them lifted. They weren't just two strangers anymore, they were a team. And no matter how hard the road ahead might be, Jake knew he wasn't walking it alone. As the two of them stood there in the dimly lit alley, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, Jake realized that life would never be the same. But for the first time in a long while, he was okay with that. He had a purpose now, and he would protect Zela, just as she was protecting him. The days after Zela and Jake made their decision to fight back against the threat were filled with planning and preparation. The city around them seemed ordinary, but to Jake, it was no longer the same. His life had been turned upside down, and now he was part of something bigger than himself, a fight to protect not just Earth, but everything Zela stood for. They spent their days moving quietly, gathering information and learning more about the group that had come to Earth for Zela. She had taught Jake how to stay under the radar, how to hide his emotions from those who might be watching, and how to be prepared for whatever came next. The bond between them deepened every day. They weren't just roommates anymore. They were allies, friends, partners in a mission that was bigger than both of them. It was early one morning when they received the news they had been waiting for. Zela had tracked down one of the leaders of the group that was hunting her. The leader, a cold and calculating figure, had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. But now Zela had learned where he was, and it was time to act, Jake, Zela said, her voice steady as she looked at him across the room. "It's time. We found him." Jake stood up from the table where he had been going through their plans. The weight of what they were about to do settled over him, but there was no turning back now. He looked at Zela, her calm demeanor, a stark contrast to the nerves running through him. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" Jake asked, his voice serious. Zela gave him a reassuring smile. "We are. You've been ready for this since the moment you decided to help me. We just need to stick to the plan." Jake nodded, trying to calm the storm in his chest. He had trained with Zela, learned from her, but nothing could prepare him for the actual confrontation. This wasn't a game. This was real. The lives of everyone on Earth were at stake. They gathered their things, Zela's equipment, the plans they had put together, and the little supplies Jake had learned to pack. As they stepped out of the apartment, Zela took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "This is it," she said softly. "We do this now, and we stop them for good." Jake felt the weight of her words, but he wasn't afraid anymore. He had made his decision. He wasn't backing down. They had been through too much together to stop now. They made their way to the location Zela had pinpointed. It was an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city, hidden away from prying eyes. The place was dark and eerie, with only the sound of their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Zela led the way, her every move calculated, her senses alert. Jake stayed close behind, keeping an eye on their surroundings. When they reached the building's entrance, Zela stopped. She turned to Jake, her expression calm but focused. "This is it, stay close, don't let them catch you off guard." Jake nodded, feeling the tension rise in the air. He had trained for this, but nothing could fully prepare him for what was about to happen. The leader of the group they were facing was powerful, but Zela was powerful too, and she had promised him that they would face this together. As they stepped inside, the silence was deafening. The building was cold, its walls covered in shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. Zella led the way through the dark corridors, moving with a purpose that Jake couldn't help but admire. She was like a shadow, every step taken with precision, every movement calculated. Then they heard it, a sound coming from deeper inside. Footsteps. The unmistakable sound of someone approaching. Zella stopped, holding up her hand to signal Jake to stay silent. They both crouched low, waiting. The footsteps grew louder, then stopped. The figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light from the hallway. The leader. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He could feel the tension in the air like electricity building up, ready to strike. Zella didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, her voice strong and commanding. "It's over. We know who you are. You won't get away with this." The leader's eyes narrowed and he smirked. "You think you can stop me? You think your little rebellion can save your world?" Zella stood tall, her eyes locked on his. "This world is not yours to control. We will protect it. We will stop you." The leader's smirk faded, replaced with a cold glare. He raised his hand, and Jake could feel the air around them shift like something dangerous was coming. But Zella was faster. With a swift movement, she raised her hand, and the leader froze, his body stiffened by her power. Jake watched in awe, as Zella's energy wrapped around him, holding him in place, powerless. "This ends now," Zella said, her voice steady. "You won't hurt anyone else." With a final wave of her hand, the leader collapsed, his power broken. Zella stood over him, her expression calm, but Jake could see the exhaustion in her eyes. They had won. They had stopped the threat. But there was still so much left to do. The fight wasn't over yet, but Jake knew that with Zella by his side, they could face whatever came next. As they walked out of the building, the weight of the moment settled over them. Zella had kept her promise. She had protected Earth and she had trusted Jake. And in that moment, Jake realized that they weren't just fighting to protect their worlds. They were fighting for each other. "We did it," Jake said, his voice filled with relief. Zella smiled at him, a genuine smile. "We did. Together." And for the first time, Jake knew that no matter what happened next, they would face it side by side.